Well, that was my next point. You would think with the media losing credibility, losing ratings, getting discredited, they would start being more credible. Instead, it seems like the lying has gone tenfold, wall to wall, as if they're in panic mode.
I agree, absolutely, and nothing, I think, shows that more than the last 2 weeks. We're following on the Goldstone report about Israel, and then the UN requesting Israel to sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and submit to inspections, and Israel says no. Then Iran turns around and informs the IAEA they're starting to build a new facility, and it shows to the entire world. Iran is playing by the rules, Israel is not, and so what does the American media do? They crank up this nonstop rock and roll, full-tilt boogie propaganda campaign to resell the idea that Iran are the bad guys and the U.S. and Israel are the really good guys, and we should not pay attention to the fact that Iran is playing by the rules because they're only doing it to throw us off.
Mike, let's talk about Iran, Afghanistan next, then get into the death of the dollar. Stay with us. We're going to be getting into the drumbeat to abolish the dollar and replace it with something even worse. What that's going to mean to this nation is not pretty. This is much worse than any foreign military power could do to us. We're going to get more into the flu, going to get into what's happening with these fusion centers, open announcements by the president of the federalization of society. But going back to Mike Rivero, Mike, you got cut off by the break getting into Iran. I had Ray McGovern on last week. He agreed with your analysis, the comments I've had. It was a total hoax. Iran is always building these enrichment centers. They have a whole bunch of them. The site was known. They're getting ready to open it in a few months. They said, here is a site that gets enrichment up to about 85%, non-weapons grade. We'd like you to come inspect and set up stuff here. And the media hoaxed it here and said, we found a secret base. And then the next day, oh, well, they told us about it sneakily. I mean, that's the contempt the media has for us. It was all a big hoax.
Well, first of all, the enrichment for fuel rods is only 5%, not 85%, and that's what Iran is basically working on. And the idea was, as I said, the reason for this incredible explosion of anti-Iran propaganda was to distract the rest of the world from the fact that Iran was playing by the rules of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, to which it is a signer, and it was playing by the rules set down by the International Atomic Energy Agency, and only the week before, the United Nations had asked Israel to sign the NNPT and submit to inspections, and Israel said absolutely not. Last spring, the United States asked Israel to sign the NNPT and submit to inspections, and Israel said no. Do you remember Barack Obama's first press conference as president, and Helen Thomas asked him that direct question? What countries in the Middle East today have nuclear weapons? And Barack Obama put on his tap shoes and he tap danced away and talked about non-proliferation and threats to peace and all the rest of it. And the reason he avoided actually answering the question is because under the Symington Amendment to the Foreign Appropriations Act, it is illegal for the U.S. government to send any kind of financial aid to any country that has nuclear weapons and nuclear weapons technology that is not a signer of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty or allows IAEA inspections. In other words, all these billions and billions of dollars our government keeps giving to Israel is illegal if Israel has nuclear weapons. And so there's this sort of a secret nudge, nudge, wink, wink understanding between the U.S. and Israel where the U.S. will always pretend not to know that Israel is a nuclear power so they can go on looting money from the taxpayers and sending it to Israel.
Now, saying that Israel can't protect themselves. I want you to continue your comment there, but I want to go back to this enrichment issue. I'm not a nuclear engineer like Bob Bowman or somebody, but I want to be clear from what I've read in the press, or if you're saying this is false, 95% centrifugal enrichment is what they need for an A-bomb, for weapons grade.
Correct.
Now, the debate is they've said you don't need a high percentage for regular fuel rods. Why can some of your centrifuges get up to 84, 85, 86%? The point is it still won't make a bomb. My point is they do have centrifuges, I believe Iran's admitted this, up to 80-something%. But the point is it's nowhere near the 95. Getting that other 10% is very, very hard to do compared to what you're saying about them only needing 5% for fuel rods. Well, then the question is, why do they need that? Then the other debate comes in. They're many years away from a primitive A-bomb, no delivery system. The U.S. and England helped give Pakistan nukes and delivery systems. Israel has 400 or more nukes. They have high-tech delivery systems. Why is everybody picking on Iran?
Well, everybody's picking on Iran because if you look through the newspapers over the last several years, Israel is the one saying, please go pick on Iran. We're afraid of Iran. Iran hates us. Ahmadinejad wants to wipe Israel off the map. It's the same kind of propaganda campaign we saw leading into the attack on Iraq. Israel says, go kill them. The U.S. government says, yes, master, I must go kill. And the American kids are going to go die in the deserts of Iran because Israel has declared Iran is the next target and the next enemy. And, of course, Iran is sitting on a lot of oil, especially in the south of the country. Iran is talking about avoiding the dollar as the oil currency of choice. They're going to go to the euros, all kinds of other things which are threats to American financial interests. Because the U.S. doesn't have anything to sell, we're using our threat of war to keep other countries to go along propping up U.S. debt. Now, the other aspect, and the reason they're pushing for yet another war in this huge mess of wars we've already got going, if you go back and you look at history, the U.S. got out of the crash of 1904 by getting into World War I. They got out of the crash of 1929 by getting into World War II. Now we're in the crash of 2007, and it's not a coincidence. Our government is trying to create a major war to distract us all from the fact that the U.S. government is what screwed up the economy and this country.
And by the way, that's not your opinion. The Rand Corporation a year ago said we need a giant multi-theater war on the scale of World War II to bring in the New World Order. And they need that political diversion or stage terror or a swine flu pandemic or all three of them combined. We're entering the danger zone right now. Mike Rivero, let's continue to talk about that on the other side. Then I want to get into the media saying it's the Arabs that are going to kill the dollar when it's our own G20, our own Geithner saying they're open to moving away from the dollar.